Hey, 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 today is National Read a Book Day. Yeah, hopefully you're going to read a book today. I have to admit, I spend probably far more time listening to audiobooks than actually sitting down and reading. And I wish I had more opportunities to just kick back and have a physical book in my hand. Or every once in a while, I'll read something, usually RPG PDFs, on my iPad. But I don't know, maybe you're a big book reader, maybe you're a big fan of audiobooks. Hopefully you enjoy reading. I don't know. I don't know what might be your bag. But there is one thing I do know, and that is the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer. I'm back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. Welcome aboard. Yes, today is Thursday, September. See, I'm zoning out already. Whack-a-mole. I gotta be honest, all morning long I've been calling, trying to get my prescriptions refilled and all these other things, just a big mess. Anyway, today is Thursday, September 6th. I guess I'm living in the past. And I am going to be reviewing Overlight, the new role-playing game from Renegade Game Studios, in just a bit. So, welcome aboard if you haven't watched before. This is a very casual show. I basically, chat about some of the latest tabletop gaming news, maybe some geek culture stuff, and then have a first look at games or reviews or what have you. So, there is chat available because this is a live stream. So, if you are watching live, and I know a vast majority of people usually catch the show after the fact, but if you are watching live, there is chat available on YouTube. It's not on screen, but I do follow the chat. So if you have a question or want to say hi, or maybe you want to get a closer look at something with Overlight, by all means, chime in and I will respond. Okay, so got a bit of news today. So let's jump on in because Capstone Games is releasing an interesting looking science fiction board game from Fuhrland Spiel. And I said, it's not Führer like Adolf Hitler, right? It's not the Führer, it's Fuhrland. Anyway, so it's coming to North America in January, and I've got the dope on Magnastorm. When the first exploration vessels entered the cloudy atmosphere of the planet Magnastorm, kind of an oddball name for a planet, they discovered not only evidence of abundant natural resources, but also the remains of a long-lost civilization. At the bidding of the magistracy, okay, don't know what that is, magistracy, the magistrates, I guess, scout vehicles are lowered to the barren surface to search for suitable mining areas. The goal of Magnastorm is to be the first player with a certain number of reputation points. You acquire reputation mostly through fulfilling objectives, taking control of one or more of the 8 commanders, and building transmitter stations. The flow of the game is controlled by an action board with 2 action panels, each of which has 5 columns. At the start of each round, there are 3 to 5 action tokens, crew members, standing in each column on the upper action panel. To carry out an action, a player A takes an action token from the upper panel and places it on the lower action panel, either to gain resources or to pay for a movement on the planet's surface, or B pays for every action token still standing in a certain column on the upper panel to gain control over the commander and his ability at the top of that panel, after which the player places those action tokens on the lower panel. Since option A will reduce the cost of option B, the players have to find the right timing for their actions. A round ends when the upper panel is empty. For the next round, the panels are swapped. Magnastorm is a big tactical board game with very little luck. Choose the right moment to perform actions or buy influence over helpful commanders. You will reap success through resource management, clever logistics, good timing, and a shrewd eye on the actions of your opponents. At the end of the game, each player receives one of 120 reward cards, which can be used in later games to compensate for varying levels of skill among the players. Madness Storm is going to be for 2 to 4 players, ages 12 and up, and it plays in 70 to 100 minutes. Kind of odd that they don't do 60 to 90. The game is going to release at Spiel in October and will hit retail here in North America this January. As of right now, there's no MSRP info available. But this sounds kind of unique. Now, it's not necessarily a legacy game, but I do get a kick out of how after the game you're going to get a reward card that you'll be able to use in later games. So, interesting. My next news piece is also for something that's coming in January, and Renegade Game Studios is going to have a special Valentine's Day edition of one of their hit family games, and it will arrive next year, as I mentioned, and I've got the dope. Renegade Game Studios is excited to announce a Valentine's Day edition of the cute classic Kitty Paw. This special edition of our adorable Recognize and React game is perfect for the romantic gamer looking to surprise their partner this February. The box includes a space to write your own Valentine message. Aww. What happens when 7 cats run into cardboard boxes? Well, a crazy game of kitty hide and seek. Kitty Paw is a dexterity and reaction game. Players try to be the first to complete the kitty combinations shown on the kitty cards to score victory points. The player with the most victory points in the end wins. Each player gets 1 kitty card in each round and tries to be the first to create the patterns shown on the cards. Since this is a recognize and react game, all players act simultaneously. Kitty Paw, and thus the Kitty Paw Valentine's Day edition, is for 1 to 4 players, ages 6 and up, plays in about 15 to 30 minutes, and this new edition will carry an MSRP of $20 when it arrives in January. So, kind of fun for the kids. I don't know. I mean, I got to be honest. I've never played Kitty Paw ever. It does look cute. It's got cute artwork, and obviously, yes, I'm sure some couples would enjoy it, and of course, the kids will like it. But people, got to realize a lot of the women out there, they like meatier games too. Don't sell them short. Don't sell them out short, I guess I would say. So, anyway, for all you know, your spouse, girlfriend, what have you, wants Martin Wallace's Steam, right? Or Power Grid or something. Not necessarily a quick playing kind of dexterity game. All right, so I've got a double dip of Paizo news today. And first off, the return of the Rune Lords Player's Guide is here. Within it, you'll find all the information you'll need to craft your character for this adventure path, including several unique campaign traits that will help tailor your character to the themes found in the campaign and, just maybe, set up some surprises for you along the way. In addition, the Player's Guide helps you choose which of your prior PCs, if any, who took part in Rise of the Rune Lords or Shattered Star, might have roles to play in the background of the Return of the Rune Lords adventure path. This new campaign begins in the small town of Roderick's Cove, and at the end of the Player's Guide, you'll find a little chart that each of you will get to roll on at the start of the adventure to determine what sort of bargains you might have uncovered at the town's weekly circle market. And never fear, if you find something you can't quite afford at the start, chances are good your bargain will still be for sale later in the week, once you've started to make your names as adventurers and have a bit more coin to your names. Certainly nothing bad will happen at the circle market, right? Well, the first adventure, Secrets of Roderick's Cove, takes place in the town itself. Do note that Return of the Rune Lords does not stay here. You won't be returning to Roderick's Cove during the course of the campaign in any significant way. So make sure your characters are both ready to defend the town and also eager to move on to explore the world. Your game master has additional information about Roderick's Cove obviously enough, as presented in Pathfinder Adventure Path number 133. The Return of the Rune Lord's Player Guide is absolutely free. It's about took a peek. I think it's 12 or 14 pages. And of course, you can download it from the Paizo website. I like the fact that Paizo's bringing back the Rune Lords campaign because, if memory serves me correctly, and I'll be the first to admit, I am not the most well-versed Pathfinder person out there. Isn't Rise of the Rune Lords, isn't that the original campaign? Wasn't that the first campaign for Pathfinder? I thought it was, and I gotta be honest, I was kit bashing that for some fantasy role-playing, my own concoction with the gang. Although we've decided we're doing Call of Cthulhu. I figure Cameron's 17, his friends are 17 and 18. Yeah, they're old enough for a little Call of Cthulhu. If it's too scary for them, oh well, too bad. Anyway, that's why I didn't, we played a few sessions of my homebrew fantasy game. And the kids were loving it. Teenagers were loving it. And of course, Elliot Miller, my best friend over at voiceofe.com, was also taking part too. And he was enjoying it too. I was really, really playing up the goblins, like, big time. All right, anyway, my other Paizo news piece is that Paizo launched the Reach of Empire adventure it was yesterday. And it is for the Starfinder role-playing game, and it's for 4 first-level characters. The adventure begins the Against the Aeon Throne adventure path, a 3-part monthly campaign in which players visit and explore some of the worlds of the sinister Aslanti Star Empire. It also includes a gazetteer of the Pact Worlds colony of Nakandis. Come on, it's fancy, or I should say it's a role-playing game. Obviously, I'm going to mispronounce tons of stuff. Also includes a collection of new starships and starship options used by the Imperial fleet of the Aslanti Star Empire, and a selection of new monsters from alien worlds. Hired to transport supplies to a new Pact Worlds colony in the Vast, the heroes discover that the Aslanti Star Empire, damn them, has invaded and occupied the colony with a small military force. The heroes must liberate the colony from its merciless oppressors, only to learn that the Aslanti have taken both an experimental starship Drive and one of the colonists, an old friend of the heroes, back to the Star Empire. The Reach of Empire. Each monthly full-color softcover Starfinder Adventure Path volume contains a new installment of a series of interconnected science fantasy quests that together create a fully developed plot of sweeping scale and epic challenges. Each 64-page volume of the Starfinder Adventure Path also contains in-depth articles that detail and expand the Starfinder campaign setting and provide new rules, a host of exciting new monsters and alien races, a new planet to explore, and starship to pilot, and more. I loved framing an adventure where the PCs are stealthy rebels. The enemy seems so powerful and overwhelming at first that the heroes must be calculated and careful, hoping to gain allies, perform sabotage, and tip things in their favor. Heroes do their fair share of exploring abandoned locations and confronting traps and monsters, so I liked having an urban-based adventure where the stakes feel high and they're working among the people they're helping, said Ron Lundeen, Starfinder developer and lead writer of The Reach of Empire. The Against the Aeon Throne Adventure Path will continue in September as well as November. It should be October and November. It's already started. And that's a misprint from the folks over at Paizo. It should be October and November. With Escape from the Prison Moon and Rune Drive Gambit. Reach of the Empire is available for $22.99 at Paizo's website if you want the physical book, as well as retailers around the planet Earth. It's also available in PDF for $15.99. So there you go. You got some Paizo news. Interestingly enough, I might actually start getting more Paizo stuff to do reviews of. simply because back in the day, I mean, I've interviewed Eric Mona a few times. I don't know if Eric would recognize me on sight, but if I talk to him for a couple of minutes, he'll remember me because, of course, I do the funny interviews. But anyway, I was going to say their contact back in the day was really odd, trying to get review stuff from, and now they've moved. Things have changed. That's why you'll see in about the past 2 months or so, past 2-3 months, there's been more Paizo news out there on both the Gaming Gang as well as on the Daily Dope, and that's because they have a new person who's actually sending out the news and stuff like that. So I touched base to see, because I think the last thing I actually reviewed was Starfinder, the core book, and I had actually purchased that as a discount someplace because it was kind of dinged up. So hopefully we'll start seeing more Paizo stuff, because I sort of feel bad because I always, tackle Wizards of the Coast stuff. Wizards of the Coast is always very cool with me, so just trying to share some love. Hey, speaking of Wizards of the Coast, how do you like that segue, right? Wasn't that smooth? There's a new series of choose-your-own adventure-style books, and they have arrived this week from Wizards of the Coast and Candlewick Entertainment, or Candlewick Press. And I've got the dope. Welcome to the Forgotten Realms Endless Quest books, where you don't just read a fantastic tale, you become the hero and choose your own fate. Excuse me, still got that bronchitis, although kind of going away. It's getting better. There's Into the Jungle. The Harpers have lost one of their own, a legendary adventurer named Artis Cimber, keeper of the artifact known as the Ring of Winter. They've hired you to travel to the jungle-clad land of Chult to find him. If only you can manage to find Cimber before the frost giants do. Or the zombies that infest the land get you first. You're in the jungle now, cleric. Then there's To Catch a Thief. And no, there's no sign of Cary Grant in this, I don't believe. When you tried to pick the pocket of a Sivlar in the night-shrouded streets of Waterdeep, you never thought she'd catch you. And you never dreamed she'd force you into her service. Now you must find the baby griffin stolen by the beholder Xanathar, leader of the city's powerful thieves guild. Hey, guest appearance by Xanathar. And if you should fail, you can count on spending the rest of your life behind bars, rogue. Then there's Big Trouble. When evil giants attack your home in Ardeep Forest, your parents think you're dead. That stinks. And they go hunting for your missing little brother. Okay, well, they're dead. Don't even worry about it. Let's go find the little guy. You wake up and set out after them, helped by a giant wizard who lives in a flying tower. You don't know where they've gone, but you know that if you don't find them, you're all in big trouble. Wield your magic wisely against the giants, wizard. And finally, there's Escape the Underdark. You awaken in an underground cell, stripped of your armor and your sword. Your fellow prisoners inform you that you're trapped in the Underdark, soon to be taken to the great drow city of Menzabera. I can never pronounce that right. The drow city, the main drow city. Beranzan. Yeah, it just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? And you're going to be sold off as a slave, but word that demons are stirring in the underworld's depth. Perhaps you could use that to break free, fighter. Each of the Endless Quest books is authored by Matt Forbeck, who does not need any introduction. They are intended for readers ages 8 to 12. They're available, I believe, in 2 formats. So I believe there's hardcover formats that are $16.99, and then there are softcover formats. Now, I don't think there's any difference outside of one's a hardcover, the other is softcover, and the softcover are $8.99 as far as the MSRP. So you might be wondering, hey, that sounds kind of neat. I wonder what those look like. Well, I'll tell you what. I actually got one sent to me. So I'm like, whoa, hey, just showed up in the mail. So kind of as a surprise, I know I'm doing the review for Overlight in a few minutes, but I thought because This just popped out. This just came out this week. And keep in mind, this is for ages 8 to 12. It's for readers 8 to 12. So it's not necessarily going to be, it's not, we can tell it's not super long. It's, I don't know, probably 115, 120 pages, it looks like. I have not cracked this open. So let's take a quick peek. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each page. We're just going to kind of zip through it because I don't want to do any spoilers or anything like that. Let's take a look to see what it looks like. And as I mentioned, all 4 of these books, this is the one with the cleric. So this is Into the Jungle, which is cool because I actually think Tomb of Annihilation is the, in my opinion, just my opinion, I think that's the best adventure that Wizards of the Coast has come out with for 5th edition. Really, really thought it was fantastic. So I'm glad to see we get to return back to the land of Chult, or however it's pronounced, Chult. Okay, so real quick, let's kind of flip through real fast, because I know people are like, "Hey, I'm here for the Overlight review." Okay, so Into the Jungle. So it says you're about to embark on a journey. Well, at least they're not like kidifying the artwork here. There's a zombie right there. So here's an interesting thing. So I'm just accessing the old memory banks, but could have swore there used to be a series called Endless Quest that was from TSR for Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s. Now I remember I messed around with some of the kind of choose your own adventure, create your own adventure sort of books, and there was one that I hated. I don't think it was the Endless Quest, and I know it wasn't Lone Wolf. Because you were rolling dice and stuff like that. I don't think I ever saw like fighting fantasy books, but it was one. Maybe it was actually the Choose Your Own Adventure line. That's what the line was called, where it was just I don't know. It just was sort of like, yeah, okay, turn to this page, turn to that page. It's pretty cool artwork. So we're gonna lead off here. They're telling you, okay, so here's your options. If you're doing this, go to page 6. If you're doing this, go to page 9. Doing this, go to page 17. That's how these things work. I'm going to take a guess. I didn't see anything saying that you needed any dice or have a little character sheet. So I think it's, oh, look, the end. Hey, I got killed. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. So keep in mind that once we get past the first few pages, if you're not familiar with these kind of things, and I'm sure some of the kids out there, like 8 to 12, have not messed around with this kind of stuff. So you're going to hop around. It's going to tell you, okay, you go, oh, you're going to do this? Okay, well then go over to this page. Oh, you're doing that? Go to this page. How many pages we got? Look at that. I was close. 122. All right, so, like the artwork. Pretty cool. I'm taking a guess that probably a lot of this artwork is from other releases. Don't know. Oh, look at this. A lot of these. The end. The end. Camp Righteous. All right. So, you're going to head east in the jungle? Turn to this page. You're going to head south in the jungle? Turn to this page. Oh, some skeletons. More undead. Oh, cool. Hey, the funny thing too is, I'm sure a clever game master, I'm talking D&D, clever dungeon master could easily take this and adapt any of these stories into adventures for their own gaming gang. I like that artwork there. Nice. Very cool. Very cool. The end, the end, the end. There's a lot of different ways for this story to end. I can see. So, Camp Vengeance. I'll have to go through this. I'll have to check it out. Of course, I'm not going to, devote an entire show to my review of it, but I'll probably just toss out like I'm doing right now. I wasn't planning on actually paging through this, and I thought, hey, you know what? I just got this. It's out. It just came out in stores this week, these books. So why not take a look through? Quite a lot to it. Ooh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Sweet. Okay, all right. So, this is the only one that I was sent, which is fine, because to be honest, I don't think this came from Wizards of the Coast. I think this came from Candlewick, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I don't. Well, wait. Here we go. Yeah, this came from Candlewick. So actually, Wizards of the Coast had given my information to the folks over at Candlewick. So that's kind of cool. I like that. And this is the soft cover, so this carries an MSRP of $8.99. All right, so that is the news for today. It's Thursday. Everybody knows I like to look at role-playing games on Thursday. Well, not everybody. People who watch the Daily Dope know that I like to tackle role-playing games on Thursday. There's one other news piece that I do want to mention, but I didn't put together any slides for it because it's the latest bundle of holding, and it's for Traveler 2300 AD, which came out in the 80s. This is a game design workshop release. It's not like Mongoose or anything like that. This was the GDW, and they've got a bundle going on right now. And of course, there's 2 tiers like usual, and it's got loads of Traveler 2300. Or a couple of years later, they changed the name to I think just like 2300 AD. But it was a pretty cool system. I do recall having a lot of the books for it. And of course, this is all PDF. And the reason why I didn't put together a news piece for it is because I couldn't find images that were actually a decent size of any of the stuff that's in the bundle. I mean, all the images were like little tiny, like 200 pixel high. And it's like, God, I can't use those. Terrible. So, if you're interested in checking out this bundle, be sure to go to bundleofholding.com. It's the newest one, and it runs for about 18 days. And I'm trying to remember who the charity was. I forget. All right, but anyway, whenever you buy a bundle from Bundle of Holding, you're helping out charities because 10% of your purchase minus gateway fees always goes to a selected charity. So, okay, anyway, before I jump into my review of Overlight, just want to talk about what's coming up on future episodes of the Daily Dope. Plus, you know what? I want to mention something. I don't know. Okay, so I'm just going to mention this real quick. Sometimes some of the commenters or comments I get on Board Game Geek make me really wonder about some of the people who are involved in our hobby, you know, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It's sometimes I'm sort of like, seriously? I mean, you took time out to write that comment? So I get this comment from somebody on my unboxing of Master of the Galaxy from Ares Games. And if you watch the Daily Dope, you know when I'm doing an unboxing, the game's in shrink wrap and I use a hobby knife and I just slice open the shrink wrap real quick and open it up. I use this also a lot of times with the cards. If there's a game that's got cards in shrink, which tend to be sometimes if they don't have that little tab that you kind of unzip the plastic, right? It kind of just zip, which sometimes that doesn't even work. So anyway, so I use the hobby knife because it's faster. I don't have to screw around picking it, trying to find a way to open up the plastic. So I get this comment on the Master of the Galaxy unboxing, and it's like, really? You gotta use a hobby knife? Why don't you just use your hands and rip the plastic off? It's like, really? Okay, whatever, dummy. What are you, flipping moron? I swear, sometimes I just, and I put the videos up on Board Game Geek so that, because the companies, when I do unboxings and reviews, they like them linked to the games on the Board Game Geek pages. But yeah, it just sometimes is a wonder. What? Wait, kind of morons are out there sometimes. Hey, that's a pretty light comment anyway. I actually had somebody comment one time. It was an email they sent saying that I should have died from the heart attack back in March. Saved everybody having to watch my show. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Thanks, buddy. Weird. People are weird. Alrighty, so just wanted to mention that. Anyway, so tomorrow's show, I am going to be reviewing Tiny Epic Zombies from Gameland Games. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This is not out yet. Kickstarter backers have been receiving it. If I remember correctly, Michael Coe told me it comes out in October. I believe it is. I believe it's October because it'll be out in time for Halloween. So I'm going to review that tomorrow on Monday's show. I will be unboxing and taking a first look at The Captain is Dead Lockdown. This is the second game in the Captain is Dead series from AEG. So that is on Monday's show. On Tuesday's show, I'll be unboxing, taking a first look at Fist of Dragonstones, the Tavern Edition from Stronghold Games. This is the Great Designer Series number 10. So take a peek at that. And that is actually a revamp of, I want to say it's Bruno Feduti is the designer on that. Then on Wednesday's show, I'm going to actually unbox and take a look at the Burning Lands expansion for, oh my gosh, now I'm completely zoning out. It's from Flying Pig Games. It's, we just played it like 2 weeks ago. Where the hell is Armageddon War? Like, why couldn't I think of Armageddon? What the heck's wrong with me? Duh, this is just a weird day, I'm telling you. Show started off pretty bizarre when I'm like, oh yeah, it's August 6th. It's like, no, it's September 6th, dummy. So that's going to be on Wednesday's show. On Thursday's show, I'm going to review Kids on Bikes. So another role-playing game. So not too long ago, I did a kind of a deep dive. We took a peek at, we flipped through, took a look at it. And it is from Hunters Entertainment as well as Renegade Game Studios. So that is going to be on next Thursday's show. The next Friday, I have a follow-up with my cardiologist. So thinking next Friday, there might not be a show. May not be a show because think they're going to try to send me off right away to do a stress test, which is like, oh man, no thanks. I had a heart attack. I don't need to have another heart attack doing a stress test. But I think they want to do some nuclear medicine too and stuff like that. So we'll find out. It's a morning appointment. It's like 10:15. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do like a later show. All depends on what they end up doing. So anyway, so I know folks are tuning in. I know I ramble on. That's how I am. They're tuning in to check out my review of Overlight from Renegade Game Studios. It's designed by Paul Alexander Butler and George Holland, with artwork provided by Kwanchai I'm going to say Moria? Hopefully I didn't completely butcher that. The 333-page book is going to be available on September 19th. So it is not out in stores just yet. It is going to carry an MSRP of $50. So Overlight is kind of a science fantasy setting, and we're going to move over to the other camera. I'm going to zoom this out a bit because this is a bigger book than the Endless Quest book. So let's zip on over here. And I already did a page through. I'm going to pop my reading specs back on. And so Overlight is this kind of science fantasy setting. It's what the authors are calling this like a kaleidoscopic fantasy game. And I can kind of understand where they're coming from, because one of the first things that I want to mention with Overlight is it is a unique setting. It's not just recycling a bunch of fantasy or science fiction tropes. So yeah, there's some very, very kind of weird, sort of almost gonzo-ish types of things going on with the setting itself. It is very unique. I will give it credit. It is pretty unique. In some ways, in a little bit, it almost reminds me a tiny bit of like Numenera or The Strange, both which are from Monty Cook Games. I'm not saying that it's like ripping stuff off. I just kind of the vibe almost I got. So anyway, so it talks about what is kaleidoscopic fantasy. And the authors seem to be really kind of inspired a lot by color, vibrancy, like album covers from the 60s and 70s. Certain artists like Julie Bell. So kind of unique. So essentially, the world of Overlight is one in which, back in ancient times, these alien caretakers almost of the universe were trying to decide if humanity was ready to be kind of introduced to all these other planets and things like that. And there's a big argument with these aliens, and then they decided they weren't going to, and one of the aliens decides they're going to play Prometheus, right? So they gave humanity these keys to all these other kind of like universes and stuff like that, and humanity was told, do not use the black key. Of course, being humans, what are we going to do, right? What's the first thing you're going to do, right? Hey, don't touch that. Right? So of course, humanity uses the black key, and it basically rends reality, tears reality apart. So now there are these these 7 realms, which are known as shards. And it's like this endless sea below and this endless sky above. And these shards are almost like floating continents that are kind of layered, really, really unusual. All right, so there are core virtues. So your attributes are considered virtues. You've got spirit, wisdom, logic, compassion, will, vigor, and might. Each of the players, when you're creating your character, you're going to actually select your main virtue. So you get to select your main virtue. That's going to have a lot to do with what folk you're going to play. The term race is not used in Overlight, and I'm cool with that. I see where designers and authors are coming from when the old school way of talking about like elves and dwarves and things like that, by race. Well, yeah. Some games now are calling it cultures. Here they call it folk. So we've got these 7 different shards. Each of these shards is actually kind of dominated by a virtue. So that's what this chart here is, talking about the different colors and the different folk who live on, or like the main denizens of that shard. So each of the players are going to play what are known as, there's right back up here, there's Skyborn, which is, whenever I say that, I always think of the Mistborn series. I don't know. For some reason, when I say Skyborn, I think Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. So anyway, what those characters are, they are like, they're special. The Overlight is actually the light that comes down from the heavens above, right? Remember, like I said, there's this endless sky, there's this endless sea below, and then we've got these different shards, these different continents. And really, the only time like night falls is when one continent is above the other, blocking out the Overlight. So the Overlight is almost along the lines, there's a lot of mumbo jumbo about it, but it's almost along the lines of like manna from heaven. So even just the average person can actually utilize this overlight to not to do fantastical things, but to improve their lives or to like feel better and things like that. So the Skyborn actually can utilize the overlight for like almost like superpowers, almost like magic. So, and I'll get to that in just a sec. So, a lot of page space is taken up by talking about the 7 different shards. They're all, each one is unique. Each one is very interesting. One thing that I do mention is that there's discussion about these shards, and then there's all these like mysterious things about these different realms, these continents, these shards. But then there's no answers, though. There's mysteries in the book. So as a game master, I mean, I tell people all the time, whenever I'm doing a review for a role-playing game, I am more about setting. I am not so hung up on mechanics. I'm not hung up on the crunch of the game, because I've been running role-playing games for over 3 decades, over 3.5 decades, really. And I can kit bash stuff together. If I don't like something, I throw it out. I might replace it with something else. I might just, do things off the top of my head, what have you. So one of the things that I really do like about Overlight is the unique setting and these unique shards. Unfortunately, on the flip side of that, there's a lot of kind of sandboxishness to the rules here, to the book, I should say, where there's things like, wow, that'd be pretty cool. I could see having the players explore something like that, or this aspect. But then there's really no follow-up. Now, of course, there are products on the horizon. At least I know of one product on the horizon. It's a supplement. I think it's about 40 pages, as well as a Game Master book, or a Game Master screen. Duh. And I believe that's coming out about the same time as this is releasing. So, mid-September-ish. So we've got the different shards, these different realms. And one thing I have to point out is the folk who live on these various different shards aren't all necessarily human. There's a lot of different unique characters in the different realms. This one here, I've read through this section a couple of times, and I still don't necessarily understand what these creatures are. They're kind of like plant and mammal together. It's funny. I mean, it's interesting. And then there's like, okay, so you're looking at this guy here, this little sort of, squirrelish looking character, right? Chipmunk-ish, maybe, who has actually looks like 4 ears. And you'd think, oh, yeah, hey, so this is probably kind of like a cute realm. No, it's a realm that's like a constant conflict. So you're like, what? Then we got the Zenith. This is another kind of interesting shard. It's like all mountainous and wintry, and it's got like the most inhospitable terrain and weather out of all the shards and that. And there's this order of monks, and these monks are actually bonded to these apes. So it's kind of like, interesting. Now, the one thing that's a little odd about if you wanted to play one of these monks is if one of the players is playing one of the monks, another player has to play the monkey or ape, the primate that's bonded to them. And it's sort of, I don't know. I don't know how many players would be like, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to be the ape. Can I be the ape, please? I'm kind of surprised they didn't go in a direction of where it was more along the lines of, like in other role-playing games, NPCs sort of like hirelings or henchmen, where you have a little bit of control over, what they do, as opposed to saying, well, yeah, okay, so if you want to be playing this monk, then somebody else has to play the primate. Kind of weird. Then we got Hark, which is just this big, massive city. It's just one big city across the entire continent. Now, one of the things that the Skyborn can do is the Skyborn can actually travel across these shards, where the vast majority of the folk who occupy these shards can't. Then we've got Veal or Vale. This is kind of a realm where it's more along the lines of a lot of like you might want to like focus more conspiratorial stuff going on. Then there's Pyre, which is kind of this is the land where might. It's all about might and kind of combat. Then we got Nova, which is occupied by, I can't really see it that well, these sentient caterpillars, which you could play one. That's one of the things that's pretty wild about this is the races that you're going to play a character from, most of them aren't human. All right, so we get into the Skyborn. It talks about what the Skyborn are. Talking about creating a character. Character creation's pretty easy. It's basically, you're gonna choose. You're gonna kind of have a concept. You're gonna choose your folk. But then you're going to choose your background. You're gonna decide what is your core virtue. The core virtue is probably going to kind of build upon where you're from, what kind of folk you are. You're gonna get build points to be able to get skills. One of the kind of weird things, I didn't sit down and like roll up a character. Well, not roll up. I didn't go in and sit down and create a character or anything like that. I just was kind of reading through, and I don't know. It didn't seem to just click the way I'm used to seeing most games, where it's like, oh, here's how you create your character. One thing that's kind of wild is that your skills and everything. This is a very rules light sort of game, which is kind of a strike, I gotta admit, because the rules don't all gel together, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But you're gonna actually have these pools of dice. So what you're doing is you're trying to get successes. So your attributes, your skills, your chroma, which are like your magical abilities, your special abilities. You have these dice pools. So it's going to go anywhere from a D6 to a D12. So you got D6, you got D8, D10, D12. Of course, D12, that's better. That's, it's a good attribute. It's a good skill, what have you. Whereas a D6, not so hot, because what you're looking to do is you're looking to roll a 6 or higher. So that as a success. You also have a 4-sided die, which is your spirit die, which is kind of interesting because what you do is when you roll your spirit die, when you're just rolling for tests, and I'll show you the different tests. Anyway, so kind of going along with this, then we got some skills. There aren't a ton of skills. There are not a bunch of skills, which I was kind of surprised. One other thing I should point out is the font on this book, and you can see, obviously enough, the font is really big. And the funny thing is, I still have to throw on my reading glasses to read. Well, no, I could sort of still read them, but the font is really, really big, and that's fine. I'm not going to really knock it too much for having this really large font compared to. I know Kids on Bikes is a smaller book. Yeah, that's not fair. I can't do that. Anyway, well, take my word for it. The font is pretty large, so kind of almost like artificially boosts the page count. Because if this font wasn't so large, I'm thinking you're probably looking at easily 40 fewer pages. Because like I said, this font is pretty large. Like I said, it's not a huge deal, but I'm sure there are people who are going to notice that when they pick this up and be like, And I'll show you where it really kind of stands out. All right, so anyway, so when you're doing these tests, when you roll your spirit die, which is a D4, the only thing you're really worried about with most of these tests, which is when you're rolling your pool of dice, is if you get a 4, because then it allows you to do different things. And I thought this was kind of cool because it's like you can take a spirit point, which spirit point is almost, you can kind of look at spirit points a little bit along the lines of like fate points or bennies, like you'd find in Fate or in Savage Worlds. But you also have spirit points. You use those to spend to use your chroma, those special powers in that. So I found that kind of interesting. There's a few different things you can. If you have an odd number of successes, you can use the 4 to give you another success. So there's a few different options what you can do. So I thought that's kind of interesting. So one thing about this game as well is they've got this thing about the number 7. So you got 7 virtues, so basically 7 attributes. You got these 7 realms. Your dice are usually a pool of 7 dice. So it's sort of like, you guys really like that lucky 7, huh? Okay, so anyway, in the character creation, then you're going to have the various different archetypes. So here's like the Zenith Order monks. And then it'll talk about, okay, so what kind, do you want to be the cave yogi? Do you want to be the scholar of the unbroken sky? Emissary of the queen? So within these archetypes, there's all these options as well. So these are the hominu, which these are the sentient primates that team up with the monks. They're bonded to the monks. Just talking about a character like that. The bird people, the Terexians, or I don't know. I'm not going to try to pronounce this stuff. But I thought it was very cool where it's not just like, oh, okay, so you're playing this and that's it. You get to further kind of customize the character itself by the various different subclasses, I guess we would say. Here we go. Here are these little mammal tree guys. Again, thing I keep thinking when I see this is it's like, so it's almost like a powered armor suit, right? It's like it's this little guy's mech. But the weird thing is, this shard is like really like intense. Probably a lot of violence going on there because it's like this unending war. So something else I should mention, I like the artwork. I think the artwork is interesting. I gotta say though, it's not inspiring. And this might sound kind of bizarre, but like I said, I like the artwork, but I like the artwork more like board game artwork or card game artwork, not necessarily role-playing game artwork, because it has kind of a fuzziness to it. And I get it. I mean, I completely understand that this is just the graphic style that Renegade wanted to go with because it's different. It's different than what we're used to seeing in big role-playing game releases. Problem is, it's not detailed enough. Usually, I think a lot of times, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think a lot of times, a lot of players, a lot of game masters, a lot of times they draw a lot of inspiration from the artwork in a game book. And while I like the artwork, and I think the artwork for the most part is pretty cool, it doesn't like get my juices flowing. And I'll kind of point that out. We see very little of the actual shards. We see more focused on the characters, or the folk, I should say, than we do the actual realms themselves, these shards themselves. All right, then we've got the Harkeen, which are pretty much human. So we've got these various different character types. We got the Pyroi. These are more like action combat. Okay, so then we get into chapter 4. Chapter 4 is where it talks about, okay, so these are the rules. These are the mechanics of the game. And there isn't a lot to it. So here we go. This is a pool of the different kinds of tests. So what kind of dice you're going to have. So I find this a little odd because you're going to see like the first three, the skill test, combat test, and open test, are all the same exact pools. So I don't know why necessarily they've got it broken up into three kinds of tests. Doesn't make sense. It should have just been, this is like one kind of test. Then you got the chroma test, which is different. And then the wealth test. So it talks about the spirit pools. That's what I was talking about, where you got these points. And one of the interesting aspects of creating your character is if you have leftover points that you didn't spend, as I try to center this back again, those carry over, they go into your spirit pool, and use the spirit pool, like I said, as like bennies, kind of like fate points, but you also use it to pay for your chroma, for your special powers. So I thought that was unique, that if you left points over, right off the bat, you're going to have more access to, you know, using the chroma and stuff. But the spirit pool is a finite pool. It's a finite amount. So, and it's pretty ambiguous how you get more spirit. Now, if you roll a 4 on your tests, outside of your chroma test, on that spirit die, you can use that to get another spirit point. So that is one way. But mostly you'll gain spirit points from good role playing, for doing something really successfully. It's really up to the game master how those get handed out. So as far as performing your skill tests, you're going to roll this pool of dice, and you're looking for successes. There is really no difficulty number. So the most part, you're going to roll for the skill test, and you're looking at, it's got to be something that there's some sort of risk involved to be taking the skill test. Got to be some sort of risk involved for you to actually roll your dice, because you only need 2 successes, which sounds kind of strange. You'd think, well, okay, doesn't 1 success get me a success? No. So 0 to 1 success is a failure. So you don't do what you're trying to do. 2 to 3 is a luminous success. And once again, there's this kind of mumbo jumbo, this that's added in here, where it's like luminant, then there's radiant. So basically, luminant successes, well, yeah, you succeeded, but it wasn't anything special. You didn't do it with any special flair or anything like that. Then you got radiant success, then you got brilliant success. It kind of talks about, okay, so what are the game results of these successes? But that's it. I mean, it doesn't go into like a lot more detail about, well, okay, so what's the difference as far as the degrees of success? It's pretty much just this. Then it talks about the spirit die, as I was talking about. You could add to your spirit pool. You can right here it says you can use a spirit flare and count something as a luminous success. Add 1 point to your spirit pool, depending on the number of successes that you get. So you can have a legendary success if on your 6 dice that you roll, you get 6 6s or higher, and a 4 on your spirit die, that is a legendary success. So it's like a character defining moment. It talks about the chroma tests, combat encounters. Combat is really kind of abstracted. You're not going to be busting out miniatures and being concerned about how far somebody can move in a turn. The premise of, like, for an example, right here, you got what, 5 pages? Combat encounters. That's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's basically your combat. Then you got wounds and healing. Basically, you got 2 pages of that. So, really, the whole gist of Overlight, as I mentioned, very, very super rules light, and it's more about the storytelling. It's about telling the story. It's about getting immersed in this kind of gonzo setting. It's like experience and advancement. Boom, you got 1 page. talking about that. All right, now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are the chromas, the radiant powers. So these are the different powers available to you. You can choose different powers. You can buy different powers based on your folk, as well as what kind of character class, what archetype you chose. And this is what the majority of the book is actually devoted to. So, one of the interesting aspects is, okay, so there you go. So look at this. We're going from 133 to 239. So over 100 pages are devoted to these chroma, these special powers. And they're pretty interesting. They're pretty varied as well. I can't tell you, how balanced they're going to work out to be. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would take a stab that you're probably going to run into some balance issues, maybe. I know there's what's known as shatter, which is pretty interesting. So it's if you channel too much of the overlight, right, you get this feedback kind of, and it can actually change you. And there's like 3 different levels of shatter. So the beast tether, here's an example. So shatter 1, your nights become filled with visions and dreams of bestial reveries, reliving the experiences you had or might have if you were to live your life as that beast. Okay. Shatter 2, and that's every time you shatter, and this is using the chroma. So it says your mind and memories start to become muddled and confused. You develop an extreme phobia of the beast to which you are bonded, believing that they can in turn see into your mind and use your senses. And then shatter 3, burnout. So there's quite a few that say burnout. There's some where it's like you die. It's like, oh, okay, well, thanks a lot. But I would take a guess based on what I looked through. There's probably some balance issues with all the various chroma, but they are pretty interesting for the most part. And it's just based on the virtues. So for an example, see, vigor and might, compassion and vigor. So that is that. All right, so then we get to page 239. Gets into like the game master kind of info. Not a lot here. Not much here at all. So it's secret wisdom. So as I mentioned, like when you're reading the player portion, right? There's this cool stuff about the realms and all these mysteries of these different shards and that. And as a game master, you think, okay, well, so you're going to share the answers with me when I get to the game master section, right? Not really. So just talking about as a storyteller, talking about how to set up, there's how to do the different tests, talking about using different campaign settings for each of the various different shards. Not a ton of information. This is like if you wanted to use Zenith, this is where those monks are. This is basically the information there. Now, granted, I get it. It is the first release in a series. They are not going to just hand me all the goodies, right? There's going to be supplements. Normally, there are supplements that are planned that are going to give me more of that information. And that tends to be how role-playing games are these days. You can't expect to get like the whole backstory with the first book, with the core book. And I get that now. It's always kind of been like that, but nowadays, to me, it seems like there are more and more source books that you have to get. To me, back in the old days, you got a little more backstory, a little more setting information. I might be wrong because it's not like I've read every single role-playing game out there. But okay, so here we're talking about Game Master's referee. So we're talking about the different tests. Talking about character rewards as far as experience points, spirit points, wealth, and valuables. That's it. There you go. That was it. That is all the Game Master stuff. Then, of course, we get into a bestiary. I'm telling you, this just makes me keep thinking of it. It's this little dude in like his powered tree armor. So his tree suit. But it is cool. I actually like this shard. I think this shard is cool. All right, so not tons of stuff. There's just a handful, like 2 or 3 for each of the realms. Some more than others. All right, so then you got that. And then we get to the adventure. And the adventure is kind of cool. I'm not going to do spoilers or anything like that. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty interesting. Is it like up there with like, oh, the greatest adventures I've seen? No, of course not. But it's a nice way to kind of introduce the characters to each other, which is always how a starting adventure usually works out. And it's got a bit of depth to it. You know, there's quite a few pages to the starting adventure. So I thought that was pretty cool. Then you've got some pre-gens for the basic adventure. This is kind of what you're looking at. When I was talking about how, okay, so, you know, the better your virtue, the higher the virtue, the bigger the die. So like D10, D6, D8, 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 D6. There's a little backstory here. And then we got some author's notes and the index. So that is everything that's in Overlight. And I think if you've sat here and you've kind of watched me go through the whole book talking about Overlight, you probably have an idea that I think it's a mixed bag. And it is. It really is a mixed bag. So this is one of the things that kind of strikes me. So Overlight was it's really the first role-playing game release from Renegade Game Studios that is all done in-house. They do have the 2 releases where it's the Outbreak Undead 2nd Edition Survivor's Guide, which I did a page through. And then, of course, there's Kids on Bikes, which I'm going to review next week. But those are actually from Hunters Entertainment, who has done other role-playing game releases. And essentially, they're partnered with Renegade Game Studios to get them out into stores. That's how I look at that relationship. It's probably deeper than that, but I mean, that's kind of the extent that I got, right? So for an example, Kids on Bikes is created by Hunters Entertainment, released through Renegade Game Studios. You can kind of tell with Overlight that the designers of the game do not have a ton of background in role-playing game design, published role-playing game design. I believe one of the authors has done some stuff for the One Ring, like 1 or 2 releases for the One Ring, and then the other designer, this is their first really major credit, right? I wasn't able to find anything else out. So I can see where Overlight is a role-playing game designed by a board game company, a board and card game company. I can see there's a little bit of disconnect. And it's not terrible, don't get me wrong. This is not a bad game. This isn't a bad book. I don't want anyone to get that impression. Because sometimes I give scores, my review score scares people, and they're like, oh my gosh, it was this, it's horrible. It's like, no. No, when things are like 5 and below, that's when you're like, I probably don't want to spend my money on this. But I do get kind of the vibe where it's like a board game company, people who are like overseeing this are probably more board gamers, card gamers than they are role-playing game fans. I could be way off, but it almost reminds me a little bit now, I'm jumping way back to the day, when Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay first came out, and it was very interesting, very kind of unique background in that, but then the mechanics of the game were kind of wonky because the game was actually written and designed by people who weren't really role players. They were really more miniatures gamers and board gamers. So, like for the mechanics are super light. They're really easy to wrap your head around. There's just things that are not in this that you would think you come to expect to have from a role-playing game product. Like, for an example, I was talking about how the different levels of success, all that's there is on that little chart, and you're kind of like, okay, as a game master, yeah, I sort of get this, but how about cluing me in a little bit more? The whole game master section is what, 10 pages? So mechanically it's very simple. It just needed to have a little more development. It's almost a little undercooked, I guess I would say. I kind of like where it's, you have the pool of dice, or it's different sized dice, which is not, something brand new. I mean, we've seen that in a lot of things. In fact, it's even in Kids on Bikes, just not with the dice pool. I don't recall the dice pool. I don't know. I've been reading like 4 different RPGs lately, including, and then on top of that, it's Massive Nyarlathotep that I've been studying to run for the gang. So yeah, it's just a little underbaked, a little undercooked, I guess we'd say. I really dig the setting. I find it very interesting. I like the folk. I like the fact that there's all these really just kind of bizarre and out there different folk that you can play. Like that. Dig that a lot. Artwork. I find the artwork interesting, but on the other hand, I kind of find it uninspiring. So, I thought the adventure is pretty good. The beginning adventure. I think way too much page space is devoted to the chromas. I would have rather seen some of those chromas come out in like future supplements and gotten way more background as a game master about the various different realms, about exploring the different secrets and mysteries of these realms. Because the way it's presented is almost as if it's like, okay, so here's an interesting nugget. You guys decide what it means. Sort of like, well, yeah, okay. A lot of people who are, experienced game masters and players know how to go from there. Overlight is really kind of designed as, a first role-playing game for somebody. That's why it's got the rules light and stuff like that. So I think some newbies to running role-playing games are going to be like, huh? Okay. So overall, I like it. I don't think it's great. I like it. I'm hoping that Renegade doesn't just put this out and then the Game Master screen and the little 40-page supplement and say, yeah, we'll call it a day. Because I think there's something here. I really think there's something here. Honestly, I kind of have the impression that if the gang over at Renegade had brought in the gang from Hunter's Entertainment to give this the once-over, polish it up a little bit, tighten some things up, kind of point out some obvious omissions that for somebody who's familiar with role-playing games and role-playing game design and things like that, take as second nature, but maybe the folks at Renegade didn't really catch, it would be a much better product. So I think this has a lot of potential. I really do. I think as a game setting, has a lot of potential because of the originality to it, and just the uniqueness. Like I said, in some ways, the setting reminds me a little bit of Numenera, a little bit of The Strange, but not a lot. It's just that's what kind of pops into my head. So I think it's worth picking up for the right person. I don't know if this is going to come out in PDF. I have absolutely no idea. I think the quick play did come out in PDF. The hardcover, the physical book is $50. I would say if you want to dip your toes in and check it out, see if it comes out in PDF. I think that would probably be a much better direction to take if you're kind of up in the air. Now, if you've seen stuff online or just, the stuff I've talked about, what I like about it, incents you to purchase it, and my critiques that I've had aren't really that big a deal because they're not. I mean, I could run this. I don't care about the the mechanics and that. I could throw my own stuff in there. I don't care. I can kit bash just about anything. So, like I said, this is a tough review for me. This really is a tough review because there is a lot for me that I really do like about this, and there's other things where it's kind of like head scratching. Seriously, really? Anyway, so on a scale of 1 to 10, I give Overlight a 6.8 out of 10. And once again, let me point out, a 6.8 does not mean it's a bad product or anything like that. It's good. It's got some stuff that I think could probably be excellent if it was ironed out a little bit better. But as it stands, yep, 6.8 out of 10. All right, wow, that was a pretty long review today. So, anywho, as I mentioned on tomorrow's show, I will be reviewing Tiny Epic Zombies from Renegade Games. Get ready for it. Scary kids, scary. All right, so I do want to point out when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to go visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Come on, by now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. I will be back tomorrow. So until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.